Pain. That was the first thing Jack Hale felt when he woke up. A deep, burning pain spread across his chest and arm, making it hard to breathe. The last thing he remembered was the battlefield. Explosions, screaming, and the Drex soldiers cutting through his squad. He had fought hard, but in the end, a plasma blast had sent him flying. He should have died, but he didn't. Jack blinked, his vision clearing. He was lying on a soft medical bed inside a high-tech infirmary. The walls glowed with a dim blue light, and the air smelled fresh, almost too clean. This wasn't a human hospital. The machines around him were sleek and alien-looking, softly humming as they worked to heal his wounds. Then he saw her. A tall, alien woman stood beside his bed, watching him with large violet eyes. Her skin was smooth and pale blue, with faint glowing lines running across her arms. She was beautiful, but not in a delicate way. There was strength in her sharp features, in the way she stood. Her long, dark hair was tied back, revealing pointed ears and ridges along her temples. She wasn't human, but something about her presence was calming. "You're awake," she said, her voice soft yet firm. "Good. Your body is healing well." Jack tried to speak, but his throat was dry. She noticed immediately and picked up a small device, pressing it against his neck. A cool sensation spread through his throat, and suddenly, the dryness was gone. "Better?" she asked. He nodded. "Where am I?" "A coalition medical station," she replied. "You were found unconscious on the battlefield. You are lucky to be alive." Jack exhaled. The coalition. That meant he was safe. For now. The Coalition of Free Species was an alliance of different alien races, including humans, fighting against the Drex Dominion. If they had picked him up, it meant he had survived the battle. "Your injuries were severe," the woman continued, "but my treatments are working. You will recover soon." Jack studied her. "You're my doctor." She hesitated, then shook her head. "No, I am your assigned nurse. My name is Scylla." There was something odd about the way she said it, like she was holding something back. But Jack was too tired to think about it. "Thanks," he muttered, "for saving me." Scylla didn't respond right away. Instead, she placed her hand lightly on his chest, right over his heart. A strange warmth spread from her touch. "I will take care of you," she said softly, almost like a promise. Jack felt a chill run down his spine, not from fear, but from something else, something he didn't understand yet. As his eyes grew heavy and sleep pulled him under, he had no idea that this was only the beginning. Jack woke up to a soft beeping sound. His body still ached, but the pain was less now. His vision cleared, and he saw Scylla standing beside his bed, adjusting the machines. She moved with a quiet grace, her glowing fingers pressing buttons with precision. "How do you feel?" she asked without looking at him. Jack tested his arm. It still felt sore, but he could move it. "Better," he said. "Whatever you're doing, it's working." Scylla finally turned to face him, her violet eyes studying him carefully. "Good," she said, almost as if she had expected it. Jack shifted on the bed. "So, what exactly did you do to me?" "I used HFY healing methods," Scylla replied. "Our technology repairs damaged tissue at a faster rate than human medicine. Your body is accepting the treatment well." Jack let out a low whistle. "Looks like I owe you one." "You owe me nothing," Scylla said quickly. Then, after a pause, she added, "It is my duty." Jack noticed something strange about her expression. It wasn't just professionalism. There was something else. Something personal. Scylla reached out and adjusted his blanket, making sure it covered him properly. Jack frowned. It felt different from the kind of care he was used to. He had been in medical wards before, treated by human doctors and nurses. They did their job, patched him up, and moved on. But Scylla, she was too focused on him, too gentle. He watched as she picked up a small container of liquid and held it out to him. "Drink this." Jack hesitated. What is it? It will help your strength return. Jack took the container and sipped it. The liquid was warm, slightly sweet, and oddly soothing. Almost instantly, he felt a wave of energy flow through his body. Scylla nodded, satisfied. Good. Your body is responding as expected. Jack raised an eyebrow. You sound like you've been watching me closely. Scylla didn't answer right away. Then she said, I must ensure you recover fully. Jack smirked. I think you're taking your job a little too seriously. Scylla's expression remained unreadable, but he noticed the way her fingers lightly curled, as if she was holding something back. Just then, the door slid open, and another nurse entered, a human woman. She carried a datapad and glanced at Jack. Ah, you're awake. How's the pain level? Jack was about to answer when Scylla suddenly stepped closer to him, her body slightly angled as if blocking the other nurse from getting too close. The human nurse didn't seem to notice. She checked the machines, nodded, and left. Jack turned to Scylla. What was that? Scylla blinked. What was what? You just stepped between me and her. Scylla looked away. You need rest. Jack narrowed his eyes. Something was definitely going on, and he was going to find out what. Jack sat up slowly, testing his muscles. His strength was returning faster than he expected. Scylla's treatments were working wonders, but that wasn't what bothered him. It was her. She was always there. Every time he opened his eyes, she was watching over him. If he needed something, she was already handing it to him. When he tried to move, she was by his side, ready to help. It was more than just good medical care. It felt personal. And then there was the way she acted around others. When the human nurse had entered the room, Scylla had stepped between them. It wasn't aggressive, but it was clear. A silent message. Stay back. Jack had seen that kind of body language before, but not in a medical ward. It was the way soldiers acted when guarding something important, or someone important. Jack decided he needed answers. Scylla, he said, his voice firm. She looked up from the medical scanner she was holding. Yes. He studied her, trying to read her expression. Why are you always here? She tilted her head slightly. You are my patient. That's not what I mean. Jack leaned forward. You barely leave my side. You act strange when other nurses come in. And when that human nurse was here, you stepped between us. Why? For the first time, Scylla hesitated. Her glowing fingers tightened slightly around the scanner. Jack pressed on. Is there something you're not telling me? Scylla exhaled softly, as if deciding something. Then she met his gaze. You are different. Jack frowned. Different how? Scylla hesitated again, then took a step closer. Xieri do not form bonds easily. We are careful in choosing those we protect. Jack blinked. Protect. Scylla's violet eyes locked onto his. You do not understand yet. Jack felt a strange tension in the air. It wasn't fear. It was something else, something he couldn't quite name. Before he could ask more, the door slid open again. This time, it wasn't a nurse. It was another Xieri woman. She was taller than Scylla, with a stronger build and darker markings along her arms. Her gaze flicked to Jack, then back to Scylla. You have been here long, the new Xieri said. Too long. Jack saw Scylla's posture shift. Her muscles tensed, her shoulders squared. This is my patient, Scylla said, her voice firm. The other Xieri narrowed her eyes. He is not just a patient. Jack's pulse quickened. He didn't understand the full meaning of their words, but one thing was clear. Something was happening between them, and whatever it was, it involved him. The other Xieri smirked. Careful, Scylla. Others will notice soon. With that, she turned and walked away. Jack looked at Scylla. What the hell was that about? Scylla didn't answer, but Jack could see it in her eyes. She was hiding something, and he needed to find out what. Jack stared at Scylla, waiting for an answer. She looked tense, her glowing fingers twitching slightly. The way she had squared up to the other HFY wasn't just medical professionalism. It was territorial. "I'm done with half-answers, Scylla," Jack said. "Tell me what's going on." Scylla exhaled slowly, as if making a difficult decision. Then she pulled a chair close and sat down, her violet eyes locking onto his. "There is something you must understand about my species," she said. Jack folded his arms. "I'm listening." Scylla hesitated, then spoke carefully. "The HFY do not choose mates the way humans do. Our biology is different." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Mates." Scylla ignored his reaction and continued. "When HFY forms a deep bond with someone, it triggers an instinct, a biological response that changes us." Jack's gut told him where this was going, but he let her finish. "Our emotions are closely linked to our bodies," Scylla explained. "When we find someone compatible, someone who awakens this response in us, it is irreversible." Jack leaned forward slightly. "And you're saying this happened to you?" Scylla's jaw tightened. "Yes." Jack let out a slow breath. "Okay, so what does that mean, exactly?" Scylla looked away for a moment before answering. "It means I feel a need to protect you, to stay close to you, to ensure no one else claims you." Jack's mind raced. "Wait, claims me? You're talking like..." He stopped mid-sentence as realization hit him. "You're saying other HFY might try to take me?" Scylla nodded slowly. Jack rubbed his face. He had faced Drex warships, plasma bombardments, and brutal hand-to-hand combat. But this was a whole new kind of battlefield. "You should not be afraid," Scylla said. "I will not let them take you." Jack looked at her carefully. There was no hesitation in her voice. No doubt. "I'm not afraid," he said. "I just didn't expect to wake up in the middle of an alien mating competition." Scylla's lips parted slightly, almost as if she was about to say something, but she closed her mouth again. Jack sighed. "Okay, let's say I believe you. What happens now?" Scylla stood up. "Now, I must ensure that no one challenges my claim." Jack shook his head. "You talk like I don't have a say in this." Scylla's expression softened slightly. "You do. But HFY instincts are strong. If another female sees you as unclaimed, she will try to take you." Jack frowned. "And how do they determine if I'm claimed?" Scylla hesitated again, then said in a quieter voice, "They watch how I act around you, how you act around me. If they believe I am weak, they will challenge me." Jack exhaled. "Great. So now I have to act like I belong to you." Scylla's eyes glowed slightly as she met his gaze. "Yes." And just like that, Jack realized his recovery had turned into something far more complicated than he ever imagined. Jack leaned back against the bed, running a hand through his hair. This was insane. One moment he was just a wounded soldier, and now he was stuck in an alien mating ritual he barely understood. He looked at Scylla. She was standing tall, her glowing eyes filled with determination. This wasn't a joke to her. This was real. Jack exhaled. "So let me get this straight. If I act like I belong to you, the other HFY will back off." Scylla nodded. "Yes, but only if they believe it." Jack frowned. "And if they don't?" Scylla's expression darkened. "Then I will be challenged." Jack didn't like the sound of that. He had seen how strong the HFY were. If Scylla had to fight another one of her kind over him, it could get dangerous. He sighed. "All right. What do I have to do?" Scylla stepped closer, her presence almost overwhelming. "We must show them we are bonded." Jack narrowed his eyes. "And how do we show that?" Scylla hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Physical closeness. Touch. Eye contact. Small gestures that show connection." Jack let out a short laugh. "So, you want me to act like we're dating?" Scylla tilted her head slightly. "Dating?" Jack smirked. "Yeah. You know, holding hands, standing close, maybe even." He stopped, realizing where this conversation was heading. Scylla didn't blink. Yes, that would be effective. Jack rubbed his face. This is the weirdest mission I've ever been on. Scylla stepped even closer, and Jack felt the warmth from her body. You do not have to do this, she said softly. But if you refuse, others will come. Jack looked into her glowing violet eyes. There was no deception there. No tricks. Just a deep, instinctual truth. Finally, he exhaled. All right, let's do this. Scylla gave a small nod, then, without hesitation, she reached for his hand. Jack stiffened slightly but didn't pull away. Her touch was warm, almost electric. He could feel the faint pulse of energy beneath her skin. Just then, the door slid open. The tall, HFY woman from before stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching them. Jack immediately understood. This was a test. Scylla didn't hesitate. She turned slightly, keeping her fingers laced with Jack's, and looked the other woman directly in the eyes. Her body language was clear. He is mine. The other HFY studied them for a long moment. Then, slowly, she smirked. Well played, she murmured before turning and walking away. Jack exhaled the breath he didn't realize he was holding. He looked at Scylla. Did we just pass? Scylla gave the faintest hint of a smile. For now. Jack shook his head. This was only getting crazier. And something told him it wasn't over yet. Jack had faced enemy fire, brutal hand-to-hand combat, and near-death experiences. But standing here, holding Scylla's hand, pretending to be claimed by an alien warrior nurse, this was an entirely new kind of battlefield. The moment the other HFY woman left, Jack let out a breath and pulled his hand away. All right, that was intense, he muttered. Did she buy it? Scylla's glowing eyes studied him. For now. But others will not give up so easily. Jack sighed. Yeah, I figured. He stretched his arm, testing his strength. So what happens next? Scylla glanced at the door. There will be challenges. Jack frowned. Challenges? What kind? Before Scylla could answer, the door slid open again. Another HFY female entered, but this one was different. She was taller, her glowing markings more intense, her gaze locked onto Jack immediately, her expression unreadable. Jack tensed. He didn't need to be an expert in alien culture to know that this was trouble. Scylla stepped forward slightly, positioning herself between Jack and the newcomer. What do you want, Tereva? The new HFY, Tereva, smirked. I want to see if your claim is real. Jack clenched his jaw. I don't like where this is going. Tereva ignored him. If he truly belongs to you, Scylla, he will prove it. Scylla's expression didn't change. He does not need to prove anything. Tereva tilted her head, eyes glowing slightly. Then why does he look uncertain? Jack felt a spike of irritation. He wasn't some trophy to be won. I'm standing right here, you know. Tereva turned her sharp gaze on him. Then stand with her. Before Jack could respond, Scylla reached for his hand again. This time, she didn't just hold it. She squeezed, her grip firm. Jack hesitated for half a second, then made a decision. If he was going to play this game, he might as well go all in. He stepped closer to Scylla, bringing their bodies nearly flush together. His free hand moved to rest lightly on her waist. He felt Scylla stiffen for a fraction of a second, but then she relaxed into it. Jack turned his head toward Tereva and smirked. Satisfied. Reva's glowing eyes narrowed, but there was something else in her gaze now. Something almost amused. Interesting, she murmured. Perhaps your claim is true. She stepped back, but her smirk remained. For now. Then she turned and left. As soon as the door closed, Jack exhaled and loosened his grip. Well, that was fun. Scylla looked up at him, her violet eyes unreadable. You handled that well. Jack chuckled. I'm a fast learner. Scylla didn't respond immediately. Then softly, she said, Thank you. Jack looked at her, and for the first time, he saw something different in her eyes. Not just determination, but something warmer. Maybe this was more than just a game after all. Jack sat on the edge of his medical bed, still processing what had just happened. He had fought in battles, survived impossible odds, but this was something else entirely. He turned his head and found Scylla watching him, her glowing violet eyes calm yet unreadable. She had barely let go of his hand when Tariva left, as if she wasn't quite ready to break the contact. Jack smirked. "So, how did I do?" "Passed the test." Scylla gave a small nod. "You acted well." Jack chuckled. "Acted, huh?" He wasn't so sure anymore. The way she had tensed when he touched her waist, the way she had leaned into him slightly, was it all just part of the game, or was there something real beneath it? Scylla moved to the medical scanner and started adjusting some settings, avoiding his gaze. "Tariva is powerful. If she believed I was weak, she would have issued a direct challenge." Jack frowned. "And what happens in a challenge?" Scylla hesitated. Then, in a quieter voice, she said, "A fight." Jack exhaled. "And I'm guessing it's not just some friendly sparring match." Scylla shook her head. "No. If I lost, you would no longer be mine." Something about the way she said that sent a strange shiver down Jack's spine. The possessiveness in her tone should have bothered him, but instead, it made his heart beat a little faster. He leaned back, resting on his elbows. "So, what happens now? Do I just keep pretending to be your mate until I can walk out of here?" Scylla turned to face him fully. "No." Jack sat up straight. "No." Scylla took a slow step forward. "The others are still watching. They will keep testing us. If they sense hesitation, if they see doubt, they will challenge me." Jack ran a hand through his hair. "And what do you want me to do?" Scylla's glowing fingers twitched at her sides. Then, in a rare moment of vulnerability, she admitted, "Stay close. Trust me." Jack studied her face. There was something different in her expression now. Not just duty, not just instinct. Something real. He made a decision. He reached out and took her hand again, this time intertwining their fingers naturally, without hesitation. "All right, Scylla. I'm in." Scylla looked down at their joined hands, her fingers tightening slightly around his. When she looked back up, Jack saw something in her eyes that he hadn't noticed before. Not just instinct, not just obligation. Something deeper. Something dangerous. Something real. Jack wasn't sure when the pretending had started to feel real. At first, it was just a game, holding hands, standing close, making sure no one challenged Scylla's claim. But now he wasn't so sure where the act ended and something else began. Scylla hadn't let go of his hand since the last encounter. Even when she moved around the room, checking his medical readings, she stayed close, closer than before. The tension between them had changed. It wasn't just about protecting him anymore. It felt like something more. Jack exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. "So, what happens if this keeps going?" Scylla paused, her glowing violet eyes meeting his. "What do you mean?" Jack gestured vaguely. "This. Us. The bond thing you mentioned." Scylla's fingers twitched slightly, and Jack noticed something new. Her markings were glowing just a little brighter than before. "When HFY forms a bond, it is not temporary," Scylla said slowly. "Our instincts do not allow us to break it." Jack blinked. "Wait, you're saying this is permanent?" Scylla hesitated. "If it is fully formed, yes." Jack sat up straighter. "And how do we know if it's fully formed?" Scylla's expression softened slightly. "It depends on both of us." Jack swallowed. There was something unspoken in her words, something he wasn't sure he was ready to face. Before he could respond, the door slid open. Tariva was back. Jack tensed, his grip on Scylla's hand tightening slightly. Tariva's gaze flicked down to their joined hands, then back up to Jack's face. A slow smirk spread across her lips. "Interesting," she murmured. "You are not just playing anymore." Jack's pulse quickened. Was it that obvious? Scylla stepped forward, her body angled slightly in front of Jack. "Leave," she said firmly. Tariva chuckled. "Oh, I will. But not before I say what I came to say." Jack clenched his jaw. "Which is?" Tariva's eyes gleamed. "There is one more test you must pass." Scylla's fingers tightened around Jack's hand. "What test?" Reva's smirk widened. "The council has taken notice. They will expect a public declaration." Jack frowned. "A what?" Scylla's jaw tensed. "A declaration means." She hesitated, glancing at Jack. "A display of commitment." Jack exhaled. "You mean, like?" Tariva interrupted with a grin. "A kiss would be the simplest way." Jack's mind went blank. A kiss. Scylla's expression remained unreadable, but her glowing markings pulsed faintly. Tariva turned to leave, but not before throwing one last remark over her shoulder. "Do it right, or they'll know it's a lie." The door slid shut behind her. Jack looked at Scylla. Scylla looked at Jack. Neither spoke, but they both knew there was no turning back now. Jack had faced impossible missions before. He had fought against towering alien warriors, survived brutal battles, and endured days without food or sleep. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for this. A kiss. Not just any kiss. A public declaration that would prove Scylla's claim over him was real. He glanced at her, and for the first time, he saw something he hadn't noticed before: hesitation. Scylla was always composed, always in control. But now she looked almost uncertain. Jack exhaled. "So, how does this work?" Scylla's glowing markings pulsed faintly. "It must be convincing," she said, her voice quieter than usual. "If they sense hesitation, they will challenge me." Jack ran a hand through his hair. "Right. No pressure." The door slid open, and Jack's stomach tightened. The room was no longer private. Several Exieri stood in the hallway, watching. Among them was Tariva, arms crossed, a smug expression on her face. Jack felt Scylla's fingers tremble slightly before she steeled herself. She turned to him, her violet eyes locking onto his. "Are you ready?" Jack's heart pounded. He hadn't really thought about this before. Sure, Scylla was an alien, but she was also beautiful, strong, fierce, and something inside him had already started to shift, had already started to want this to be real. He nodded. "Yeah, I'm ready." Scylla hesitated for half a second, then stepped closer. Jack could feel the warmth of her body, the faint energy humming beneath her skin. Slowly, carefully, she lifted a hand and placed it against his cheek. Jack's breath caught. Then Scylla leaned in. The moment their lips met, something inside Jack changed. He had expected this to feel awkward, forced, but it wasn't. It was electric. Scylla's lips were soft, her touch both gentle and firm. The glowing warmth of her skin sent a shiver down his spine, and for a moment, the entire world disappeared. There were no Exieri watching, no tests, no challenges, only her. Jack deepened the kiss slightly, his fingers tightening around hers. He felt Scylla respond, her grip on his face becoming stronger, as if she needed this just as much as he did. A faint hum vibrated through her body, and her markings glowed even brighter. When they finally pulled apart, Scylla's eyes were wide, her breathing uneven. Jack knew his own face probably looked the same. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, Tariva chuckled. "Well," she said, smirking, "I guess that settles it." Jack barely heard her. He was still looking at Scylla, still feeling the lingering warmth of her lips against his. This was supposed to be pretend, a test, a way to avoid a challenge. But as he looked into Scylla's glowing violet eyes, he realized something. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of Scylla's energy that seemed to linger in the air. Jack's heart still pounded from the kiss, the reality of it sinking in. This wasn't just a game. It never had been. Teresa, standing in the doorway, broke the silence with a low chuckle. Well, that was more than convincing. The council will accept it. Jack didn't hear her. His entire focus was on Scylla. Her eyes were wide, her breathing shallow. But there was something in her gaze, something raw, something he hadn't expected. She wasn't just following her instincts anymore. Scylla stepped back slowly, her hand still lingering near his chest. "You did well," she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. Jack frowned. "Did I?" Scylla's lips parted as she took a deep breath, her eyes searching his. "Yes. You did more than I expected." Jack's pulse quickened. The kiss hadn't just been for show, not for either of them. And now that it was done, now that he could feel the pull between them, he realized something important. The lines between duty and desire had blurred. He took a step closer to her. "Scylla." She met his gaze, and for the first time, she looked uncertain. What happens now? Jack knew the answer, even if he didn't want to admit it. They had passed the tests, the challenges. The bond was real. There was no pretending anymore. "I don't know," Jack said honestly, his voice low. "But I can't just walk away from this. From you." Scylla's breath caught, and for a moment, Jack thought she might pull away. But instead, she stepped closer, her hand reaching out to touch his cheek. "It is not just about you and me anymore," Scylla said softly. "If we continue this, if I truly claim you, there will be no going back. You will be marked, and so will I." Jack's heart raced. He understood what she meant now. Once the bond was sealed, once they gave in to this connection, there would be no separating them. Not physically, not emotionally. But the question remained, did he want that? Jack looked down at her, seeing the truth in her eyes, the raw vulnerability that had always been beneath her warrior exterior. He reached for her hand and gently placed it against his chest. "I'm not afraid of that," he said, his voice steady. "I'm not afraid of you. Of us." Scylla's eyes softened, and she took a deep breath. "Then you understand what this means." Jack nodded. "Yeah, I do." And just like that, the last of the doubt melted away. Scylla had always been in control of her world, her duties, her instincts. But now, Jack realized, he had control over his own fate too. He didn't have to be a bystander in this alien game. He had a choice. A choice to stay, to accept what was happening between them, to make it real. Scylla stepped into him, wrapping her arms around his neck. Jack held her close, feeling the warmth of her energy, the pulse of life between them. There were no more tests, no more challenges, just the two of them, bound together by something stronger than fate, something they had both chosen. And in that moment, Jack knew this wasn't just about survival. It was about something deeper, something worth fighting for. And he was ready.